Thank you for tuning in to Hacks and Hobbies with your host, Junaid. We're visited by our amazing guests coming from all walks of life. Want to learn their story, their struggles, and their journey on how they got to where they are today. So stick around. In this episode, we get to speak with Russel Nohelty. He is a USA Today best-selling author, publisher, and consultant. He runs the small press publisher Wannabe Press and The Complete Creative, which helps creatives build better businesses. He ran multiple successful Kickstarter campaigns for Ichabod Jones, Monster Hunter, Katarina Hates the Dead, My Father Didn't Kill Himself, Spaceship Broken, Need Repairs. Additional campaigns, I Can't Stop Tooting, A Love Story, Monsters and Other Scary Shit, Cthulhu is Hard to Spell, The Godverse Chronicles, and Pixie Dust, raising over $135,000 on the platform to date, including 3 campaigns that raised over $25,000 each, and one that raised $39,000. He's also written several graphic novels, and children's books, all of which can be found on his website, russelnohelty.com. Let's enjoy and listen to his incredible journey. Russel, thanks so much for coming on to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
Awesome, man. So we connected through Matchmaker.fm, which is a brand new service put together by podcast.co. I actually got to speak with the CEO of that service, and he told me, how he came up with it. And there was everybody was just like, oh, I want to be a guest on the podcast. And so we met through that service, and I love what you've been doing. You're a publisher, you're a speaker, you're a USA Today's best-selling author, which is really, really cool. And I looked in some of the books that you've been writing. Really awesome stuff. I always wanted to write, and I've written blog posts, but nothing this extensive. I was a very bad English composition student. I never finished the class. But it's really, it's really good to have you. Let's learn a little bit about yourself. Tell me a little bit about yourself. How did you get started, and what brought you here?
Sure. So it's interesting because several of my books actually are just collections of blog posts or blog post content. So my second fiction novel actually was a collection of blog posts about a girl and her best friend trying to solve their father's her father's murder.
Wow.
And then I have 2 nonfiction books, or both are set up like blog posts. My book, How to Become a Successful Author, is actually literally. There's a couple of new things, but for the most part, it's just culled straight from the Complete Creative Archives. Then my other book, How to Build Your Creative Career, is not that, but it is about 50 different blog post style things about what you need to know.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a survey of everything you need to know. So, I've been blogging since 2007, and that's become a big part of especially my fiction or my nonfiction writing. My fiction writing, I only did that one book in the blog format, but I did it in the blog format because it was the thing that I was most comfortable with. Is the thing I've been doing the longest as a writer.
Yeah.
So I have been a full-time writer since 2015. And before then, I still made comics and I wrote movies, and I directed a movie, and I started 4 companies, and I did a whole bunch of other stuff, but nothing really stuck until I launched my company, Wannabe Press, and that was the first time where things really and my universe has really coalesced for me.
Yeah, so you basically brought everything together that you learned over the years into this realm of, hey, you want to be a writer.
Yeah, I had directed a movie before then, and I'd written the script for it, but I I really didn't take writing super seriously until
Yeah.
I got in a car accident in 2008, and I was in a
Mm.
neck brace for 6 months. So I lost
Oh,
my
wow.
job as an executive producer of this internet
Hmm.
television network, and I really could just literally do nothing except sit and write.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that time I wrote like 10 scripts, and I just
Wow.
realized that I could do all of this without having to rely on anyone. And so I
Mhm.
wrote a lot of bad ones, a couple of ones that like ended up being redeveloped or optioned,
Mhm.
but uh, nothing really took off huge from that first collection of scripts. But from it,
Yeah.
I kind of got my groove, and I wrote just a ton of different stuff. So I wrote like sci-fi and
Mhm.
fantasy and romantic comedy and horror and thriller, and I poured all sorts of stuff into those scripts and TVs and movies, and
Yeah.
um, I I ended up just learning a lot, and from that came I moved to LA and I met
Mhm.
my first manager. My manager introduced me to comics, and
Mhm.
comics led me to novels, and novels
Yeah.
led me to more novels, and now I just this week uh, finished the first draft, I guess second draft now of
Mhm.
my 18th novel.
Wow, that's really cool. That's really awesome. And, talking about writing and talking about how you get into writing, I've taken some master classes or watched some master classes, didn't do much of the homework, like Malcolm Gladwell and James Patterson and R.L. Stein has something. And he's like R.L. Stein's really interesting because his courses are, focused around young audiences. So it's like just start writing anything. You don't even need to think, just anything you look around, you just come up and you just start writing it. And that's how you build that writing muscle. And having experience with it with blogging, since 2007, that's over a decade, right? That's a lot of experience. That's a lot of building that muscle.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that that writing fiction and writing nonfiction are two separate things.
Hmm.
I've very easy for me to write nonfiction now because
Okay.
nonfiction has a point.
Yeah.
Every blog post has like a point that you're trying to get across in that blog
Yes.
post, and uh, unlike when you are writing fiction where you're
Mhm.
literally building a universe and things have to like weave together and move together in like a narrative flow that
Yeah.
all supports each other. There's just so much more you have to do in good fiction writing, and I find it to be nearly impossible to do good fiction writing. I've been doing this. I have systems for everything.
Yeah, you gotta
like
have
uh,
them.
like everything in my life has like some system or some product or something that I've
Mhm.
like learned over the years. And while I've been able to write more words in a day,
Yeah.
it has never I've never been able to figure out a system for like writing like writing a novel and like it
Mhm.
not being like a incredibly hard process.
Yeah.
It is so hard that every time I finish it, I cannot believe that I finished it. And every time I
Mhm.
read through it, I cannot believe that like I finished it again. That like it
Yeah.
made sense.
That's
Especially
pretty.
my books, which tend to have especially my new series, they tend to have multiple characters.
Mhm.
So I not only have to get one character's voice consistent,
Yeah.
I have to get 4 or 5 characters' voices consistent, and I have to
Yeah.
go back and read like what just happened. And basically every day, I write one chapter of each person's book.
Yeah.
So like I'll be in like character one and character two, character three, character four, and then the next day I have to go back to character one and I have to write there, and I
Mhm.
have to like so it's quite a bit of of effort, and I've never found a way to one make it more enjoyable, but two just like make it not feel like you're giving all of yourself.
Yeah. That's really good. So what can our audience take away from speaking with you? What is something that you would wanna, you know, teach them or give them some tips on
Oh,
that they
I
would.
mean, I
Mhm.
happen to have a free writing course at
Oh, sweet.
thecompletecreative.com/novel, which will show you how to write a good book in less than 30 days. It's like 5 hours. It's everything from setting, world building, characters, structure. It's everything that I learned in movies and TV, and just sort of everything I sort of poured into this writing course. And it's completely free for anyone to take when they want to. I'll show you everything, including how to write a blurb and description, how to find a good cover, how to research genre, how to get in the right mindset.
Nice.
I mean, can I really say something that someone else hasn't said before? There's just so the hard part is that like it's not changed in 1,000 years. Writing's not changed in 1,000 years, and yet still no one has ever mastered it. And if there's nothing that like gets you hope like that, like I love that idea that like I just doesn't matter that like there's been millions upon millions of writers. They all stared at the blank page. Some of them with quill, some of them with parchment, some of them with typewriters. Some of them did typesetting when the book was like all of that. But and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because like nobody has mastered it. Many people are experts, or like maybe there's many masters, but there's no one who's ever done it perfectly. And it's the thing I love about writing is it really brings you back to that tradition of like, Jane Austen had to stare at the same page. Homer had to stare at the same page that like I have to stare at. And it's the same thing. And I can show you how to write faster. I can show you how to write better than you do now. But there's very little that is the same really as it was for centuries and for millennia. Yes, I now use a computer with Microsoft Word instead of a typewriter or a quill and pen or whatever the other thing is. But we're all dealing with the exact same demons, dealing with all of the empty page and like how to write faster and how to come up with an idea. And I would just say that
all the self-doubt too, right?
Yes, the crippling self-doubt and all of that stuff. But like it heartens me to know that tens of millions, maybe even billions of people have stared at that same page and they've had to make something out of it. They've had to figure out what, I mean, it's easier to research now, but most of my work comes from like mythology and magic. And these are the kinds of mythology that have been around for thousands of years. And I'm still like dipping into the same, magic, mythology, fantasy type worlds. And it's a very weird hobby or very weird job.
But it gives you passion, right? It gives you motivation to keep doing it because it fulfills you.
Well, I also run a podcast and 2 other companies, and I've dealt with severe depression for my whole life. And the only thing that like tamps down that severe depression is writing fiction. Not even writing nonfiction. It's writing fiction. I get satisfaction on conveying a concept well to somebody that they enjoy when I write nonfiction. But it's not the same. It doesn't like flush out the anxiety that I have or any of that stuff. Like that literally only happens from fiction. And it only happens from a very, very specific kind of fiction too. So I just kind of have learned to turn into the skid, and like my stuff may not be the most commercial stuff that's ever existed. It's not romance, it's not thriller, it's not in one of the top categories. I'm usually not one of the top 100 authors on Amazon, but like I do all right. And and like the work, I don't know if it fulfills me. It tempers my anxiety at the very least. So I don't know if I have a tip. Like my tip is if you could do something else, go do it, because books are everything that someone would tell you, everything that somebody would tell you in business school is a bad idea. Um, uh, 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 Books fall into that. They are low margin. They are low cost. They are generally frivolous purchases that you don't absolutely need. Um, the only advantage of them is you can ship them media mail, but so you can DVDs and other media products. There are just infinite amounts of competition. There are infinite amounts of free books, and there's infinite amount of big players in the space.
There's a ton of players,
and the places you're selling them to need massive margins off to stay in business. So you literally like pretty much are walking into a friggin' nightmare. A business person's nightmare is publishing. So if you can do anything else,
so
even in art,
what other thing would you recommend? Like what do you enjoy the most in all of the four different things that you do?
the writing. That's the only reason why I do it, is because I literally can't not do it. It is a compulsion for me to do it. I have found ways to incorporate business tactics into the writing that make it more make me be able to do better than most other authors do at the end of the day. But still, it's a volume game, and you do not want to be in a volume game at the end of the day. Like, you really want to be in a game where like you could sell 50 people, and if you sell them $10,000 of stuff, you've now made $500,000. You do not want to be in the game, especially when you're trying to scale, of having to sell 10,000 people a $10 product. Like that's a bad business investment. If you're writing a business plan, this would not be like a product that they would say that would be wise to invest in or give capital to. So we only do it because
we love to do it.
Because we were compulsed to do it. And that is what I found in creative entrepreneurship as a whole, is like people are generally compulsed to do it. And most people do not understand that compulsion. They understand the compulsion to be an entrepreneur. But most people do not understand creative entrepreneurship because it's not driven by money generally. It's driven by
mostly passion.
By passion and by impact. And then by money, like to survive. But, we as entrepreneurs, as creative entrepreneurs, get much more satisfaction of someone reading our work than in the money that hits the bank account. And I think most entrepreneurship is about the opposite. Entrepreneurship is about how do you maximize profit and minimize loss and make something that has the highest margin so that you make the most money at the end of the month. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just
nothing wrong with that. You need to live.
It's just not a thing that most people that I've ever met in creative entrepreneurship think about.
They don't think about it.
They think about like, how can my stuff resonate more? How can I have more impact? How can I get more people to read my work or appreciate my work or whatever? But they're not really looking at that, and like to their detriment a lot of times, because like that means that they have no money and they generally can't pay rent, and like even big names are like basically broken. And that part sucks. But there's just the compulsion that is in there, and if that compulsion drives you, then I think that it's easier to just fuel it with writing or with music or with whatever than to tamp it down. Because like for all of the books that are out there, most of them are just not very good. And
not very good books.
If they're not very good, they're not very original.
Right.
And, like, especially if you can be an original voice in the field, I think that like it's needed, but just go into it knowing that like, can you make money doing it? Yes. I know people who make gobs of money, like hundreds of thousands of dollars a month in as a writer. But it's so much easier to start literally any other company, especially like information-based
Yeah.
company.
I guess it all comes down to like how passionate are you if you want to get into writing, and how much writing you've already done. If you're in it for like, I'm gonna write one book and it's gonna sell millions, then forget about it. This is not the place to start.
Yeah, the thing that makes a career is the back catalog, and really
Mhm.
having a series that has 1 million words in it and has
Yeah.
broken through. So,
Yeah.
really, you're not going to be making a lot of money as a writer until you have at least uh a universe that's got several books in it, but really
Mhm.
one single series that goes for 10, 15 novels, and takes a long time to get that thing,
Yeah.
but it's all about the back catalog. It's all about the back catalog. It's all about getting new people into book 1 and then having them read through book 15.
Yeah.
And so the more books you have, the more success you're going to have, but the more cost you're going to have too. So uh you you you've got to take that into account. If you want to make your one book and your one book literary fiction novel, cool,
Mhm.
but it's just, you're never going to be able to make a living from it.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, unless you're like JD Salinger, and even he had like jobs teaching and such. So if you
Yeah.
want to, be a college professor or be a teacher or be a banker or be a plumber and just have this be your job, your like side job that you do at
Yeah.
night,
Yeah.
that is how literally pretty much every author who's ever lived has done it until the
Done it.
last 30 or so years,
Mm.
maybe 50 years.
Yeah.
99.9999999% of every author who's ever existed has had a job or been independently wealthy and been able
Yeah.
to write because of that. So
That's
the
interesting.
idea of like a full-time writer is kind of it's kind of yeah, it's kind of a weird thing. It's kind of
Yeah.
like like an outlier that like a human being can make money on their words.
Yep. Totally makes sense. All right. So at this point, I have some questions for my guests that I ask. Um, and we've been talking a lot about writing, and you have, you've done other things, but this touches on what is the one hobby that you wish you got into?
I guess drawing. I would love to be able to draw my own work. Uh, uh,
Because
uh,
I know you have other people drawing for you.
yeah, I'm a writer, but I'm not an artist.
Hmm.
I never really got into music,
Yeah.
or cars, or any of that other stuff. But like
Hmm.
um, different ways to do storytelling. So some kind of art, digital or analog art, I think would be the thing that I've done some of, but
Hmm.
I wish I had really like dived into it or had any talent in it, or recognized that it's not about talent before I
Hmm.
was like 35. And because now I don't would say it's too late, but I, I think that train has that sailed for me
Yeah.
personally.
Yeah. All right. Fantastic. So you wish you could draw? Because I think I was reading a book by Scott Adams, the author, or the comic Dilbert, and so he's a writer and an artist, and he took right he took it took him some time to figure out what his art would look like, and weaving the information or the experiences he's had over time.
Right. Yes, I would have liked to be able to do the same. I did draw a book once, but it is not very well drawn.
Yeah.
Uh, so yeah, I think if I had one hobby that I
Mhm.
had gotten into when I was younger, it probably would have been art.
Nice. Our next question is about, what did you want to be when you were a child?
The earliest thing that I wanted to be was an actor.
Mm.
So when I was 16, I was in theater,
Mhm.
and then I wanted to be Kevin Smith. So I wanted to be a director and a cinematographer, and then I kind of vacillated between director and cinematographer and editor when I was in college.
Yeah.
So yeah, the first thing I can remember wanting to be was an actor.
Nice. Yeah. I think. That's one of the things that I dabbled in, but I'm still not. I still haven't done enough acting to be like, oh, I'm an actor. But I've talked to some. I've talked to some, and it was really fun talking with them and learning that passion. All right, next question. What is your favorite movie or TV show? And if none, how about a book?
Well, I do have a favorite movie or TV show, but I'm going to talk about a book because I
Okay.
love The Frickin' Hazelwood by
Mhm.
Melissa Albert. It's my favorite book of all time.
Yeah.
She just made a second book called The Night Country, which is even better.
Nice.
And so it is like dark fantasy meets psychological horror meets her own twisted fairy tales. Like she made up an entire book of fairy tales just for like this series.
Yeah.
And this fairy tales are so demented. They're like anything like the Hans Christian Andersen or Brothers Grimm would like be so proud of like these particular fairy tales. They are just so good.
Yeah.
And that's probably the best bit of world building that I've seen in many, 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 many years.
Nice.
So that's the one that really made me. I read a lot of books, so if you can make it stand out and just I don't
Yeah.
even hate that she did it. That she like is so good. She's just
Yeah.
like just out of this world. Like how she builds all of these things in. You know, I'm not even envious. I'm usually envious of people, but I'm just like so in awe of
Yeah.
that book. And so, uh, in a way that I have not been enamored by a book in a long time, and I read a lot of books.
That's amazing. That's amazing. All right, next question. I'm gonna have to look that one up because I'm not too much of a reader. I do listen to Audible fiction stuff. For example, one of my favorite ones on there is um, Armada and Ready Player One by Ernest Cline.
Yep.
But I think there's some other good ones by I can't remember his name, but he did like the red suits or something. Can't remember, but yeah,
John Scalzi.
John Scalzi, that's the guy. Yep, he's got some good stuff. And what's cool about Audible is that I'll pick anything that Will Wheaton is reading
Yeah, it's a
because
good plan.
he's got yeah.
So that's a good plan.
Yeah, it's a good plan, and he reads really well, and the character voices that he makes, it's really cool. All right, next question. What movie would you choose if you got to play a character in it?
What movie would I choose if I could pick? And I have to go through the entire arc of that movie as the character.
Yeah,
Um,
if
all
like
right.
imagine being Matthew Broderick in War Games.
No, I wouldn't want that. I think I'd
No.
have to say Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Yeah,
That's a good. It's
that
not
would
my
be a good
favorite
one.
movie, but like
Yeah,
he has a pretty good day.
yeah, he had a pretty
Um,
good day.
you know, the Knives Out movie was
Hmm.
also like she ends up pretty good at the end of that. So
Hmm.
maybe that one. Trying
Okay.
to think of like where the character has a windfall and
Yeah,
like at the end. Stranger Than Fiction's a good one. Has a
yeah,
good ending at the
that's a good
end.
one. Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, I think just like simple, lighthearted comedy like Ferris Bueller's Day Off
Yeah.
would would be a good one. Or I'm trying to think of one where like nothing really happens and like the character just has very little arc, but that's not like an
Hmm.
American kind of construction. So
Sure.
I will stick it with Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Awesome. I like that. That's a classic movie from our time. All right. Next question. Who is your favorite superhero?
Domino. Domino
Domino.
has easily the best power because her
Really?
power is
You're gonna have
luck.
to tell me about this guy.
So Domino is a mercenary from the Marvel universe.
Okay.
She was the Zazie Betts character in Deadpool 2.
Mhm.
Her superpower is luck. She's just lucky. And like that is easily the best superpower. Like it's not even close.
Yeah.
Like luck is just like it's every other superpower. like combined into one.
Yeah.
Uh, so so yeah, I love Domino. I've been trying to convince people that luck was the best superpower for years, and and finally when Deadpool 2 came out, I was like, see,
Yeah.
like look at how lucky she is. She just
Yeah.
do stuff. Like she doesn't have to do. She just exists, and she is lucky. She never has to fly or like turn invisible. She
Yeah.
just like gets out of stuff because of luck.
No, that's a really good point that you make, man. I like that. I remember watching Deadpool 2 and like, wow. I'm gonna have to go back and see that. I think there's a compilation of all her scenes um on YouTube for sure. All right, next question. And this is a cool one because I'm working on something new that's based on this question. If you were a board game, what would it be?
If I were a board game, what would it be? Um, God, I haven't played board games. I haven't played like board games in the way that
Yeah.
like it's not what board game I like best. It's like what
Hmm.
board game would I be?
Yeah.
Um, I think I would be Super Fight.
Super Fight. And that's the board game.
Oh, it's a card game. Does that count,
Okay.
or does that have to be a board?
Well, I'm gonna have to ease up that question, I guess.
Well, I think when you
But yeah,
think board games, you think board games or card games. Like Super
yeah.
Fight is a game where you and another person get a question, and you have
Mhm.
to basically put cards down that you have in your hand
Yeah.
to and then fight like who would win in a fight, who would win in bed,
Ah,
who would win in this, and like you have to put this, and then you have to argue about is the who wins, and then the third person judges who wins.
it's like shark versus bear. Who's gonna win?
Yes, so
Oh,
I like that one.
Super
Um,
Fight.
uh, I don't like I wouldn't be Clue or like
Hmm.
Monopoly or
Yeah.
like Ticket to Ride or
Yeah.
Life or like Trouble.
Hmm.
You know, I would be like, I don't know. Is there one where you stay at home all the time and just like eat soup or something? Like that's the one that I would be
Maybe
like.
life.
You just whatever board game is just like, look at that guy just sitting there. I'm
Yeah.
like, I would be
You
the
be that.
Sims, like the
You be the
Sims,
Sims
like,
board
but
game.
like just a guy who like was like not being the Sims guy, just like some guy who existed in the Sims universe, and like that would be probably the thing that I would be
Okay.
if I had to be honest.
Yeah. No,
But if
that's
I have to be, since it's board games, I'm gonna
yeah.
say Super Fight.
Super Fight. All right. Fantastic. So, Russell, it was really awesome chatting with you. Thank you so much for sharing your journey on, how you became a writer and, what drew you into it. It's really, really awesome, speaking with you and learning about that because like you said, it's a something that you just are driven to do because it helps you get your idea out,
Well, and it's
get your
so nice to
thoughts.
see the other people that it resonates with. Like
Yeah.
that's the best part. I
Yeah.
mean, I guess the best part is that I haven't killed myself probably because of books and when like writing books,
Hmm.
and it allows me to like flush out all that anxiety. But uh, the second best part is like seeing the people that resonate with and like that love the books and like they buy them still. They still buy the weird things that come out of my head, and like
Yeah. That's
that's pretty
awesome.
awesome. And so, yeah, that's really it's really special to have that connection with somebody, especially like with comics, but like with novels, like everyone is manifesting this like world in their head. It's kind of like I am a peyote dealer, and I'm like
Mhm.
I'm leading everybody on this trip, and they're all like tripping balls to like the words that I am said, and that's such a weird and gratifying feeling to like be
Yeah.
able to like let to lead a bunch of people on these hallucinations that I've
Yeah.
created from my brain.
Nice. No, that's a really good point. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, building that community and getting to see people, um, you're essentially impacting people in one way or another because you're providing them entertainment value. And that's what that feedback loop is what keeps you going as well, right?
Absolutely.
So, Russell, where can my audience find you?
Sure. So I do magic, mythology, and monsters.
Mm-hmm.
My most popular series is called The Godsverse Chronicles. The first book, And Demons Followed Behind Her, is free on all platforms right now on ebook
Nice.
form. So you can check that out. You can also go to RussellNohelty.com
Mm-hmm.
and sign up for my mailing list and get a couple of my most popular comics, compilation of stories from my most popular anthology
Yeah.
series, and a couple of other things. So RussellNohelty.com, or go look up And Demons Followed Behind Her. I promise you will know probably after one page whether you love it or not. So it's not. Don't let it sit on your on your Kindle. Just like get it, pop it open, and read the prologue. And if you
Yeah.
don't love the prologue, or at least the first chapter,
Yeah.
please give it the first chapter. The first
Yeah.
chapter is pretty short, and
Yeah.
but like if you like the first chapter, you're gonna love the book, and you're gonna love everything that I write. So yeah,
Fantastic. I love it. Thank you so much, Russell, for your time. We'll be sure to include the links and the free book that you mentioned in the show notes. And you also have you said you also have a place where people can learn how to write a novel.
Oh, yes. If you go to thecompletecreative.com/novel, it will lead you to my free novel writing course.
Fantastic.
Thecompletecreative.com is my training academy, which
Okay.
trains creatives how to build better businesses. So there's all
Nice.
sorts of free courses, epic blog posts. And I have a podcast called The Complete Creative, which has had almost 200 episodes on there
Nice.
as well. So I
Fantastic.
interview creators about how they built and sustained their creative career. It's available on iTunes and anywhere else you get your podcasts. Again,
Beautiful.
it's The Complete Creative.
Awesome. We'll be sure to include that podcast link as well. Thank you so much, Russell. Have an
Happy to
awesome
be
day,
here.
my friend. Yeah.
You too.
Take care. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this episode on Hacks and Hobbies. We absolutely appreciate your contribution. You can find additional notes on hacksandhobbies.com. Please share the podcast with your friends and tell them what you learned about our guest today.